Hey, thanks for clicking on my video. This is Rocky, and this review will be for episode 8 of the new show Gotham. Let's go ahead and get right into the episode. We get our first look at Bruce basically returning to school. As he's dropped off by Alfred, he makes a offhand comment about being homeschooled and, how he has, information showing, that it's better and things like that. And I took that as basically a nod to the comics, as around this point Bruce basically left Gotham and started basically studying under experts and masters as opposed to traditional homeschooling. So he studied with expert physicists, mathematicians, magicians, fight martial artists, and everything like that. So I took that as just kind of a little nod to the comics there. And we see how Bruce doesn't really seem like a child anymore due to what happened with his parents. He's just, you see that, start seeing more of that mental transition of him, no longer being a kid and basically already transitioning to an adult mindset, or at least a more analytical mindset, as opposed to, more chaotic, traditional childlike behavior. Through the school, we actually get introduced to a young Tommy Elliot, who in the comics grows up to become the villain Hush. In a lot of ways, Hush is a mirror of Batman or Bruce Wayne. In the comics, they were actually friends at first, and Bruce actually learned a lot of his methodical and tactical thinking from Tommy during games of strategy games and things like that they played together. But they kind of mirror each other in the comics, whereas, Bruce's parents die and, he takes over the fortune and basically becomes Batman, while Tommy has a rough time at home and things like that. And, but, grows to basically train himself kind of like Bruce did, go and leave and learn from all these experts, and comes back trying to take down Bruce Wayne and Batman both. So we get that introduction. We get a lot of scenes with Gordon at the Gotham Police Department. We see that, he's still basically a pariah amongst all the other officers. And at this point, he's, bottling up the rage he has inside from the fact that all these officers left him in the previous episode. None of them had his back, which is, in the line of a police officer, you have to have, your fellow officers have your back. So he's taking a lot of things on himself, and you just see it in his mannerisms and his behavior that, he just doesn't really look at the others as cops anymore. We get scenes with Harvey and the captain talking about Gordon, how he's handling everything, and, Bullock's basically like, he's not handling it well because, all these people turn their backs on him, basically kind of how would you feel kind of thing. And, Bullock definitely feels for Gordon, and he and the captain talk about they need to break through to Gordon because he can't do everything on his own, which is what he's trying to do. So we get that, continuing to get that sense of that growing partnership between Gordon and Bullock. So I definitely enjoyed those scenes. And this actually does prompt later on in the episode for Bullock to basically put a huge guilt trip on the entire police department, saying, hey, none of you had this man's back. He's missing right now. I need your help. And, they do give in and give their help, but it's just that kind of, growing that connection between those characters and how that's going to, fit in later on in the story. We get scenes with Barbara and Gordon, and at this point, Barbara's she's somewhat becoming unglued, and she's highly paranoid right now. Of course, it doesn't help that she's drinking and everything at the same time, but she's just trying to cope with what happened with Zaz and Falcone and everything in the previous episode. And she said she wanted to carry at least half of what Gordon was going through, but I don't think she expected to have to carry this much. So those are some tender moments between them, and some evolution to their relationship. And it was very well acted. Definitely enjoyed those scenes. Looks like we may not see Barbara for a little bit. So we'll see how that affects Gordon right now, as it seems like he would kind of come to terms with some things. But, this is probably going to definitely hit him hard once he finally returns home. We get to see Penguin trying to smooth things over with a fish by presenting her with a gift. And unfortunately, instead of just accepting it, she once again leaves her mark, as it were, on Penguin. This prompts Penguin to visit his mother. And thankfully, in this episode, we don't get nearly as many creepy scenes as we got in the previous one. But through talking with his mother, he realizes that people have secrets, so he thinks Fish must have a secret. So he has her new umbrella holder picked up for questioning, and through some torture and hanging him upside down and things like that, he learns that Fish has someone close to Falcone. That's kind of her secret right now. He doesn't know who, but he knows there's someone there. This leads us into some moments with Fish and Liza, her weapon, as it were, finally talking together again. And Fish is pushing Liza to essentially drug Falcone and get into his office and pull out his ledger to copy some information down, which Liza does, but you definitely get the sense that she's not really comfortable being, Fish's weapon right now. Whether that's just she's, doesn't want to go through with it, or if she's actually starting to develop actual feelings for Falcone. It's kind of ambiguous there. I think she's starting to develop feelings for him, though, because he is treating her well. He hasn't, done anything, harmful against her. He treats her well, and all she has to do is, basically cook for him and things like that. So I think she's just building that connection between them, and I get the feeling she's going to turn on Fish later on. But we'll just have to see how that plays out. In this episode, we actually get quite a few more scenes with Edward Nygma, which I thoroughly enjoyed, as we see him starting to try and assert and push himself into the investigation, even going as far as to try and do his own autopsy as opposed to the lead examiner who kind of pushes him out of the room. But we get to see that, continue to see that growth in Nygma's ability to find connections in odd places and things like that, where he connects his current murders going on with some previous murders that had happened, and makes a connection about it taking place in a some type of business, and just see more of his analytical skills, and how he's wanting that recognition. He's wanting people to say, hey, good job, Edward, or good job, Nygma, things like that. So we see that from his character. I'm definitely enjoying seeing the scenes with Nygma. He's a very, very awesome character at this point, and it has me, constantly wondering what's going to be the thing that makes him snap. Is this something that's going to happen, anytime in this season? I'm hoping it'll be something later on in, a few seasons down the line, hopefully. Because I'm enjoying seeing him as, quote unquote, a good guy now, or at least working for the police department. We get another comic villain introduced in this, in the form of Richard Sionis, or Sionis, I believe the name was pronounced in the show. And basically that's a play off the character Roman in the comics, who turns out to be Black Mask. And Black Mask is just this, rich kid that was also roughly the same age as Bruce. So in this case, they're making him older. So we get a parallel with, Gordon facing this villain, and Bruce facing, his villain in the form of Tommy Elliott. So we get parallels between those characters in this. Now in the comics, Black Mask, is essentially a rich kid that goes through a bunch of stuff and basically becomes this underworld boss named Black Mask, and like other villains, is just trying to take out Batman and Bruce Wayne. So we get that introduction as well. So I'm sure this is a character we'll see come back. But it was awesome seeing the way Gordon handled him, as This is a guy that's very wealthy, very powerful. They play off his ability to manipulate people, which is a nod to the comics. But he's not, a true killer, true villain. He wants to be a killer. You see that from the way he talks and things like that, and wanting to understand killing. Whereas Gordon is a soldier, a former soldier. He is a warrior. And, he handles Richard pretty well. But like I said, I'm sure we'll see him come back, and hopefully with a better mask. But we're seeing this repeat of theme of between the vigilantes and everything, like the Balloon Man, and we had the Spirit of the Goat People, and then this Black Mask. We have this repetition of these vigilantes or villains starting to wear masks, which is all reference to what's going to happen later on, as far as Batman wearing a mask and all these other villains popping out, and how they're often referred to as masks. So we're seeing them continuing to build this world and this mythology, and continuing to grow with that. And we also get to see Gordon is still adamant about wanting to bring down the corruption in Gotham, and in particular the Gotham City Police Department, of which he lets Bullock know specifically, I want you to know. Now, this could be taken as a warning to Bullock, that he's going to take him down, but I think it's more a thing of Gordon saying, hey, you had my back, keep it straight, keeping a good cop that I know you can be, and let's take these people down together. But like I said in the previous review, it's in the previous episode we had that seed beginning of wanting to bring down the corruption, wanting to bring order and strength back to the police department. In this episode we get that continuation, as we get the sense that definitely the captain, Bullock, and Gordon all want to see that happen. So we're going to continue to see that grow and see Gordon start working towards removing this corruption, and that's probably what's going to eventually lead him into eventually becoming a captain and later on the commissioner, which will more than likely happen way down the line in this series. But we're just, like I said, seeing that building of the mythology in the world. And we also get a nice little brief comical reunion between Gordon and Selina, where she gets basically arrested, and again mentions Gordon's name, and looks at him and says, hey, did you miss me, kind of thing. And it's just nice seeing her back on the show. I'm thinking here pretty soon she's going to end up running into Bruce, and they should have some good scenes together. But I really enjoy those moments between Gordon and Selina. Is just the reactions she gets out of Gordon are just pretty priceless. Definitely got to say this was a very strong episode. This series is continuing to grow very well. The writing is just staying nice and solid. We're getting some introductions of some characters from the comics in there. Like I said, kind of changing some of the ages, so that way they're not all basically the same age as Bruce. But, in this one, like I said, we got that parallel where Bruce was dealing with his, quote-unquote villain, and Gordon was dealing with his. So that was very smart writing, I thought. I'm really enjoying this series. I hope you guys are as well. And like I said, it's getting better and better. This was definitely the best episode of the season so far, and it kind of keeps going that with each week. For me, it's getting better and better. So really enjoying it. Definitely recommend you guys check out Gotham if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Gotham? What did you think about the introductions of the character Hush and Black Mask and how they handled them? If you enjoyed the video, I'd go ahead and ask that you'd give me a thumbs up and share the video. And please subscribe to my channel, as I will be doing weekly reviews of Gotham, as well as the other Marvel and DC television shows going on right now. That being said, hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye.